So here is Utopia. Being happy. Many of the things I see on YouTube or TikTok is people with the ideas, of how the universe works. People have the ideas about consciousness. People have the ideas of energy and positive stuff, and the stuff about the water, where you put positive, you surround water with positive vibes or whatnot, music or whatever, a bit like Ghostbusters 2. Then there are particles in the water, they react to it and form nice patterns. And you do something the opposite, turns into, and this was found by a scientist. So it's like showing that everything in the universe has some sort of energy attached to it. So, but if all this energy is out there, if all this sort of ways of mental healing, because there's I think there's a guy from Sweden or something like that, don't quote me on that, Hoffman or something, and he believes for the best thing for mental health is cold showers. He runs sort of half naked through the snow, swims under Icelandic waters and stuff, and he's been able to take that because he knows how to calm down this stuff. So it kind of proves that instead of not only could we be able enough to fix ourselves, to heal ourselves physically, like when you get a cut or something, it heals up, or any viruses that's out there. There's a lot of people talking about, the people that didn't get sort of vaccinated by different plagues in the past and stuff like that, they survived and the virus died and all that sort of stuff, because the body knows how to sort of fix itself. And so lo and behold, we've got ways to fix ourselves mentally. Now, the thing I've always believed in is if you can talk to yourself and be honest to yourself, you're doing exactly what the psychiatrist does, and ask yourself those questions, and you can sort of and come to terms with who you are, could help fix you. So there's so many things out there that can help you physically, mentally, and all that stuff. I even saw one recently about aliens. There's in the books that kind of hint that it might have been aliens that gave us weed, that gave us those, times in the 60s and the 70s when you had that flower power movement and everything was all love and people had a vision of the world and stuff. And so you think, well, when we all come to this understanding and of the universe and the world, and we shouldn't be working, our life as it is just now, you born, you go to school, you get educated the way they want you to get taught, and then you go to work, and then once you go to your work, you retire, have a few days off or whatnot, and then you die, and that's life. That's the way society tells you that is what you're meant to be doing. So we all think about, well, maybe that's not the way our world or our life should exist. Maybe there's secret people behind the wall, behind the curtain, and they're pulling the strings. And this is, so maybe there is a utopia that we should be living in. And I often question myself about utopia, and well, utopia, when you say that sort of stuff, and bringing the world together, and I often theorise that maybe should we have, instead of different religions in the world, should we have no religion, bring all the countries together, have one sort of leadership, and then everybody is under the one roof, so to speak. And it's just, would that work? A lot of people say no, it won't. We can't have a utopia, and it's quite sad to think that. But there's a hint of truth maybe to that, but not the way you're probably thinking. And I'll come back to that in a wee second. So what we've got to think about is, well, to get to this new level of understanding of energy and positive thoughts and magic numbers, and have you put it out there in the universe, come back to you, you get tested, all this stuff, there's millions of stuff out there. And believe it or not believe it. It could be true, it could not be true, but it's good to question, and which I often do. So to get to those levels, then you've got to think, well, what about the beings that is witnessed? What about other beings that have maybe reached that higher intellect that's out there? And of course I'm talking about aliens. Now, again, what I've seen on YouTube and what people sometimes talking about on YouTube and TikTok is the sightings of aliens, and I've got all that stuff on my TikTok channel. I've got some of it on the channel on my YouTube on the Inner Mind. And some of these shots, you see aliens disarming nuclear weapons, bring it down, alien spaceships getting shot at, but the aliens don't fire at them. And this dates back, you know, from the beginning of time to World War II and stuff like that, when these lights used to follow these jet planes and stuff like that during World War II. I say jet planes, you know what I'm talking about, planes, fighter planes, whatnot. So, but these aliens, I've seen the alien shots and they don't fire at us. So it's like we human beings tend to strike, tend to be violent. We think of many reasons to have a war. We create wars, and then we have things like pandemics, and people are speculating, like I am, you know, is it a pandemic to keep the world population down? And so we invent a virus and all that sort of stuff. So there's thousands of things out there that rack your brains and stuff like that. And then I've always said about afterlife, if we have the knowledge of that when we die it's not the end, and if we keep that information, if society keeps that information in check, what sort of life will we have? Will it build to a utopia? Will we reach the intellect that these aliens have, that seem to have this advanced power, that take down our weapons, that make sure that we're okay, and probably protect us from meteorites, but they don't fire at us. The one thing they don't do. Mind you, some theorists will say that's because the bad ones are amongst us all and all that sort of stuff. But here's the thing. Well, if they're amongst us, they're still a living being. They've still got a consciousness, and they're still... So it doesn't matter what their agenda. There's good... The good positive energy, and there's bad in every sort of circle of life. I believe in every living thing there's good and bad and whatnot. And I'm not talking about God or devil or hell and stuff. It's just good vibrations, bad vibrations. That's it. One feeds off the other. Just like an animal that eats meat and an animal that doesn't eat meat. It's you know, two different things. And they're there. So anyway, I'm drifting off the subject. So, but what we've got to realise is that, you know, that this is an experience of life, and to get an experience of life, we need to have different feelings instead of a happiness utopia feeling. We've got to feel angry. We've got to feel upset. Otherwise, it's just a mundane existence. We've got to have the yin and the yang and the elements. But with the knowledge that's out there, maybe we can cope with it better. I'm going back to a conversation I had earlier on. There was a programme on Channel 4, The Naked Truth or Naked Dating or something. And we're now living in a society where men and women are either choosing what sex they are because they're in the wrong vehicles, the wrong cars. And there was one episode where I saw a woman that was a lesbian, and she was choosing somebody that was on the changing from one sex to the other. And she felt that, and I thought, well, you know something? For me, that is a consciousness accepting another consciousness, and not worrying about the body. Not worrying about the vehicle that the person's driving in, can actually see that consciousness trapped in the wrong vehicle. And then I look back in our history books, and in our history books, during the Victorian time, there were men dressed in pink girls' outfits. And, you know, sorry, not men, but young boys dressed as girls. And that was the norm, that was to be, and pink was a strong colour for men, or boys and stuff like that. And then when you see men were known to wear high heels round about then, you know, and so all that was good at that time of life. And then 100 years later, you know, it's now suddenly boys, blue is for boy, pink is for girls. And, you know, skirts are for girls. So, and it all became very, you know, and then of course that begat, again, the same sort of dislike for being gay or being lesbian or anything, or out of what they so-called the norm. But that's what society teaches people. Now we're living in a society where all that's out the window, and we're accepting people for who they are. We're accepting their consciousness and stuff. So I think we are waking up to a new way of life, and we're slowly getting round to this so-called utopia. But as I say, to have that utopia, the world all needs to be on the same sort of wavelength. The understanding that life is not over when you die, that colour or sex of your body is not important, and that your consciousness and your experience of life is. But that isn't to say that you have to be happy. The experience of life is to have these feelings of hurt and anger and everything else all mixed in. This feeling of love. Because there's videos out there where people of high intellect, I mean, you can think of a Vulcan from Star Trek, Spock, people with high intellect that squash down those emotions of love because they think it's too animalistic. But then they could have all the knowledge in the world, but not the social skills to talk to people. And so in other ways, we could educate those aliens or anything else out there that have a higher intellect of science and everything else, but we could teach them about feelings, about compassion. And that is why, for me, you know, it's okay to be miserable. It's okay to feel guilty and angry and all the negative emotions, because that is the experience of life and being a part of humanity. But that aside, once we all come aboard with all this stuff out there about turning our negative to a positive, then we'll have all these other people in our lives that will say, okay, he's been angry, he's been emotional, let's help him have a cold shower. Let's help him think of the magical numbers. Let's help this person by giving them the positive thoughts mentally, and we can guide them back, or her back. So yeah, you know, we could be living in our utopia, but that's not to say we have to be happy about it. That's my thoughts. Thanks very much for listening.